Hello and welcome to our second episode of the Steven Universe Rewatch podcast, which still does not have a name.
Bienvenue, folks.
I'm Jim. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Tom. It is nice to meet you all. Thank you for joining us.
So today we are going to be talking about episode 2 of Steven Universe called Laser Light Cannon.
Yes.
And I just have to say, I was shocked at how awesome this episode was.
Yeah, for a second episode of a series, I mean, it was very good. Some great commentary, right? Oh, it's good.
It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't have anything to tear down, but there were just a lot of really nice things that I noticed that we can just dive into talking about. What I wanted to do was to do kind of like a formal like plot synopsis, sort of. I think that's a good way to kind of capture any glancing thoughts, and we can just talk in general as we go. So yes. Basically this episode begins with Steven and Amethyst going to, damn, I wish I remembered his name. It's the father that runs the Fry restaurant.
Oh no, the father, Greg. Oh, shoot.
Also named Greg.
What is his name?
I should have looked it up. I think his name is, I'll find it in 2 seconds.
Frybo Dad.
Yeah, it might just be Frybo. No, Frybo is the mascot.
Yeah.
His name is, Mr. Fryman is his name. Petey is the son.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So yeah, we see Mr. Fryman. Steven and Amethyst are like, give me the bits. Which is...
I love saying give me the bits now, by the way.
It is something that really has stuck with me ever since like the first time I watched this. Is like, I always think of give me the bits. And especially
the bits.
When thinking about like all of the, because what the bits are, it's just like all the discarded potato bits that have been frying like all day. So they must be super crunchy and like probably burned, but
I mean, on the plus, probably also free. Well, definitely free, but
yeah. But I do really like this little like, it's kind of, this episode does a lot of like background storytelling really well, and a lot of just like really glancing looks at certain aspects of Beach City in like a really positive way. Like we see Mr. Fryman is initially kind of like annoyed that Steven's there, but after like just being around him for a few minutes, he's all warmed up, and even though he like had closed the restaurant for the day, he's still like, oh yeah, I'll give you the bits.
Yeah, which is just wholesome. There's a lot of wholesome moments in this episode, actually. I mean, Steven with his dad especially, I mean, you know, right off the bat, you kind of get some information about Rose Quartz and how she gave up her form for Steven. And then, I mean, I guess I'm catapulting a little bit further into the episode, but sorry. I'll let you continue with the synopsis first.
No, yeah. It's really quick. So basically, they notice that there's this like big eye in the sky that looks super cool. It's called a red eye, we learn. And that Rose had a laser light cannon that they need to use. It's kind of funny because it's one of those things like, I don't remember this ever showing up again. Maybe it did once or twice, but it's funny how quickly the gems are like, okay, this is how we beat this thing. Like, we know how to beat it, we just don't know where this thing is.
Yeah. What do you mean, the laser light cannon showing up again, or...
The laser light cannon, yeah. Just specifically that.
It does show up later, actually. I think when they were... when the spaceship first comes,
with Peridot and G. Asper.
Yeah, I think they tried using that on it, if I recall.
We will find out eventually. Yeah.
But I'm almost positive it does make a reappearance. It
looked really familiar to me, and also I really love the way that we end up seeing it shoot later. It's so cool. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of like little small things in this episode that I really really like.
Yeah.
But so basically, just to kind of wrap up this like really brief synopsis, because it is a literal 10-minute cartoon for children, they go to Steven's dad's like storage. It's like a storage shed. Yeah, and then he finds it eventually after going through a lot of his personal items, which we see. This is another thing where it's like we get a lot of character development for Greg in a supernatural way and
super quickly, but like effectively too. I mean, again, it's a 10-minute episode, but like you instantly start to start to like Greg a lot more.
Yeah, if you're not even paying attention to the items, like there's a lot that you can glean from
Just like
what
background.
items are in his. Yeah, what are all these background items? There's a lot of like, really interesting reference, not like direct references, but just sort of like background. Like the golf club set has like a rose on it, which is just like a cool little tie-in. A lot of like rock posters and instruments, and even if you're not paying attention to those, you still like, based on what Greg is saying and his attitude, you immediately know what this character is.
Yeah.
And
well, and then that coupled with his lifestyle too. I mean, you see him and his van that he lives in, that's all beat to hell. I always loved his tan too, because he never wears a t-shirt, but he has that t-shirt tan. And it just, drives me crazy.
It really it brings up a lot of questions.
Yeah. But so then they get the laser cannon, and it does not fire. And then Steven realizes that the power was within him the whole time, and says the magic words, and boom, shoots down the red eye.
Yeah, and then one thing I also love at the end is that the half of the town gets like totally destroyed, and Amethyst has a really good line where she's like, "Steven, you saved most of Beach City."
Oh, and then there's Van too at the very end. It's like, I live there.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to point out before I forget is I just adore the color palette in this episode. Like, even from the very beginning, it takes place at like twilight, so we already see like some stars in the sky, but it's like still sunset.
Yeah.
And as the red eye thing gets closer, everything just gets bathed in like shades of red and pink, and it just looks great. Looks fantastic.
It really does. And then when they're shooting the cannon too, I like you said, I love that scene. Just the way they have like it vaguely form rose quartz, and it was just neat. I remember being like, oh damn, like the animation on this show is pretty good for like episode 2 of of that era of cartoon.
Yeah, when you look at Steven Universe as like a person that has never seen it before, I feel like good animation would not be what you'd expect, or like creative. Like there's a lot of like good direction in this episode too. Like we see a lot of really interesting like close-ups, and just like there's one scene in particular that I really liked where I think Steven was standing right next to the thing, and like Pearl just was in a really interesting pose, and I thought it was just neat how Pearl was posing here. It's not like a pose that looked particularly easy to just throw up on there. It's not like she's just standing next to it and pointing at it. She's like kind of hunched over, and it just adds a lot of like dynamism to the scene. And it's like things are very scary. We're about to die.
Yeah, just I mean, I feel like Pearl has a lot of good moments like that throughout the series, but this one definitely did stand out.
One other thing that I do want to point out is there's a very famous, or I should say infamous, like screenshot of Pearl that comes from this episode of her in the very beginning when Amethyst and Steven walk up. There's a part where she like puts her arms like on her sides and makes like a frowny face, and it looks horrendous. It is the most cursed Pearl that we see. She doesn't even look like Pearl. It's so fucking funny. I laughed out loud when I saw it because I was like, oh my god, this is the episode.
I know exactly what you're talking about too, because it shows up everywhere.
Yeah.
But also like just cool continuity stuff. I mean, the fact that like right now the red eye's just a thing, like especially to Steven, it's just like, oh, it's this evil thing needs to be destroyed, but you actually get context for it later, which I was just remembering.
Oh, really?
With Peridot. Yeah, it turns out that was Peridot sending the eye to scan Earth for other gems.
I totally forgot about that. That's so cool.
Yeah, like, I just neat, like, like you could easily write it off as just a one-off monster kind of thing, but actually has a purpose, and the gems want to destroy it because Homeworld would find out about them.
Yeah. It's funny, though, because it makes it seem like the red eye is just going to destroy them anyway. Like, it seems like it is just going to crash into Earth, which maybe that's how it's supposed to function, but who's
to say? But just neat that they bring it back later. Like
yeah,
that's
that is
what
super cool.
And that's what I love about these early episodes. I mean, you're first starting off and you're just like Steven, you have no clue what any of this crap is. It's just like mystical alien magic. But then like I just enjoy getting the context for it later, and you're like, oh, like I feel smarter now.
Yeah.
At least
it's
smarter
also,
in this world context, yeah.
and it's neat that they were able to do like this kind of thing where it was like a thing that Rose had they couldn't find, because like later on we learn that Rose has like she not only has like a special room that only Steven can access, but she also has like an armory as well.
Yes.
So it's interesting that they like put that on the back burner and they were like, all right, we really want to flesh out like the characters of the city more. We want to focus really on Steven's relationship with his father. And then they've got this like really cool reveal later. It's like, oh, there's like so much more that like the world, it just makes the world feel like so much bigger when you see those things.
Yes. Yeah. It fleshes out everything. And just cause there's a lot happening just in the background right now, which is so nice. And this is the first of many of Rose Quartz secrets. I'm gonna say it. I don't stand Rose Quartz.
Oh my god.
I know.
So this is a really good discussion I think to have, because I was listening to a podcast recently that went deep into this, and it was really like, it kind of changed my mind on a lot of things. Because the way that Steven Universe is structured, the story, is we see Rose early on, and she's very much deified. Like, every character that talks about Rose loves her, and we see, like, the person that Rose became. But as the series goes on, and even up until, like, Steven Universe Future, we see all of these, like, horrible things further back in her past. And it makes it hard to like her. It makes it hard to relate to the characters that love her, even though they saw her as this changed person, because we're being reminded of like
all her faults.
Yeah, I think one of the most, and it's probably not the most horrific, but the way that it was presented in the show made it feel like the most horrific. But in Steven Universe Future, spoiler, the character Volleyball is heavily implied to be physically abused by Rose Quartz, which was like actually insane.
Which was crazy.
Like, I think it's so fascinating that Rebecca chose to do that, because that is such like a unforgivable, like that when you hear about an abuser in real life, that feels like such an unforgivable thing, but she's giving that trait to the character that is supposed to be like this ultimately like this, like, I mean, Rose did horrible things, but she got better. Like, is that the message I'm supposed to take? Like,
well, that's what's confusing about it to me, because all right, like I should, you know, just to backtrack a little bit, like, given the context of everything, Rose Quartz still did Pink still did a very big, oh god, that was a major spoiler. Bleep it out. Rose Quartz did a, you know, this whole conversation's a spoiler. So,
it really is. You shouldn't be worrying about that right now.
Yeah. Like, considering as a diamond, I mean, that's just what it was, you know? Like, nobody knew any different. Like, there wasn't even an option for any different. Like, it had never happened before. So, she is pretty impressive in the fact that, like, was effectively the first gem to come to the realization, like, hey, this shit isn't right, you know? And granted, went about it in terrible ways at first, and like you said, became better. But I mean, like, I don't know, that's impressive in of itself for her to come to the realization that it's wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, like, so you have to kind of keep it in mind from that context. Like, abusing gems was nothing to the diamonds, because it's just like, that was just life. I mean, it doesn't make it better or right, but like, that's what confuses me, because now I'm confused about what Rebecca Sugar is trying to portray here. Like you said, like, is it okay if you realize the error of your ways, or is it like just a permanent black stain in your history? Like,
and I think the way that they kind of get around it, and because I think that like forgiveness is like a very important theme, and I think it's a very powerful theme, and something that Steven Universe does do a lot. Obviously, but I think the way they get around it is like by having Rose die, essentially having Steven like become a new version of her, because she had such a like horrible past that the only way for her to like redeem herself would be to create a new life that was like pure good. And we see that Steven is like super pure. And
that's a very interesting point. Yeah, I mean, like maybe from her perspective, she realized that she
like she's dying for her sins.
Yeah, for her own sins, pretty much. Like, and that's a good point. I mean, with Steven, you have everything about Rose from a power perspective, but a totally blank slate. You know, it's starting fresh for her. With this new life that's like, you know, she gave up her old ways for. Definitely an interesting conversation to be had about that.
Yeah, and it's funny how we can already talk about this stuff and just from the stuff they're dropping in episode 2.
I know, it's crazy.
That's one of those things, like, and I'll probably say this a million times, but people give Steven Universe a lot of shit for, like, a lot of things, but one thing that is really cool is just how these characters, how you can track the development of these characters through the entire series, and it's really something fun.
Change that makes sense, too, you know, given the circumstances of the show. But to backtrack a bit, too, how do you feel about Greg in general? Like, you know, you mentioned that this reveals his character a bit, but how do you feel about it?
So, one thing I kept thinking about was that other episode in Steven Universe Future with, where we get, like, a really crazy, shocking reveal about Greg's, like, backstory. And honestly, it's one of those things, like, looking back on it, and, like, I really like Greg as a character. I think Greg is such a, like, salt of the earth, just, like, a genuinely, like, good person, but very flawed.
Yes, yeah.
He doesn't seem... And another thing that I think is really funny is that when he ends up getting a lot of money later on in the series, it doesn't affect him at all.
He doesn't change his lifestyle a bit.
He's so content at just, like, scraping by in, like, the most meager sense that he's just, like... I think it's really cool that he's... Like, I want to be in that state one day. I want to just be, like... be able to like sleep in my van and not do anything
and just be content. Yeah, like that's the thing. He's a content character at this point. Like he's got his lifestyle. He likes it. I mean,
I think it's like it like ultimately it's like he is extremely irresponsible with Steven as well. Like I want to bring up, so in Steven Universe Future we do learn that that Greg Universe is not his real name. He got his last name from a song he liked.
From basically a David Bowie song.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. But it, like, that and also that he had a very, like, pretty normal, like, upbringing, and that he... I'm not sure if he totally ran away. I can't remember exactly.
No, yeah, he said he just left.
And yeah, his family still clearly cared about him and cares about him. They kept everything, all of his possessions. But it's one of those things, like... In hindsight, it makes sense. Like, it doesn't feel like it's betraying his character. It's a hard pill to swallow because it's not something that I ever had to think about before, because it's just not something the series ever focused on.
It never touched on, but... And I think Steven's feelings at that point, while exaggerated because of everything going on in Steven Universe Future, were valid. Like...
Totally.
Like, that is all he wanted, and... You don't see that at this point in the series, episode 2. Like, you know, Steven just loves his dad, adores him.
His mind is very small. Like, he doesn't understand how big the world is.
And doesn't really know any better. But, like, Greg's, like, not an absentee father, but he's a half there father, you know? Like, it's really the Gems' job to raise Steven, and the Gems don't have that human aspect of things. And, I mean, Greg can't provide a life for him, like, in the van or anything like that, but it's almost selfish of Greg.
Yeah, for sure. Because he doesn't want to give up his lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why I like him so much as a character, because he feels very, like, genuine. Like, he feels like a very real person that I've met before.
Oh,
like,
definitely. Like, yeah, a good-meaning guy, but flawed. And you know, that's what makes a character interesting. Like, if you had this, you know, just great father figure all the way through, you know, you're not experiencing anything. Whereas you have a flawed character who, at this point too, like, seems pretty great, but there's definitely moments here and there that you see it come out of Greg. and just like I don't know. It I remember first watching this episode and being like, oh, like this is kind of a weird relationship with Steven and his dad, huh? Like
he doesn't live with his dad? Like
yeah, like and it just confused me. And then you know, especially after Future, you get it, but Greg is an interesting character. I hate his beard.
he very much looks like a Homer Simpson with the beard.
Yes.
I always think of Homer Simpson when I look at him, and it's kind of an apt comparison, honestly. He's like a Homer Simpson if Marge died. In a weird way.
And Homer Simpson just was like more of a good person.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that sucks about The Simpsons is that Homer just becomes like a awful sociopath over time, where initially he wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But one other thing I wanted to mention is the voice actor for Greg Universe, Tom. His name's Tom Sharpling, I think. He does a radio show called The Best Show, really? And I think he wasn't really a voice actor. Like I've heard his voice in a lot of cartoons now because he has a very like cartoon voice. But he has this like radio show called The Best Show, which my aunt and uncle are huge fans of, and they've been listening to it for years and years. And they said that it's really funny that people would start calling in, like little kids or like younger people would be like, "Do you voice Greg Universe on Steven Universe?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, we don't really talk about that on this show."
That's really cute, actually.
It is really funny.
I mean, you gotta embrace it.
Yeah, I think his voice is like awesome. Like there's so much like character in his voice. It's one of those voices I feel like I hadn't heard before.
Yeah, it's definitely a memorable voice. Like I can hear it in my head perfectly.
Yeah, I'm definitely definitely a fan of Greg. I stan Greg. I don't know if I stan Rose. I'm gonna kind of use this rewatch as a chance to reevaluate what I think of like Rose / Pink.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to be looking at her with a more critical eye because I am conflicted. I really am, just in the sense that she did so much good, but lots and lots of bad, but nowhere near as much bad as the rest of the gems too. Yeah, the rest of the diamonds, I mean.
And to not like keep going on this forever and ever, but the one thing I do kind of really like, and it goes into what we're talking about with Greg too, is it's not about just creating like a character that you can describe in one word, like good or bad, evil, whatever. Like it's a multifaceted, no pun intended, character with like many different ways of interpreting, and different characters interpret that character in a different way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And Garnet can throw Amethyst pretty far.
That was pretty funny. I really like that joke. Also, the humor. We didn't even talk about the humor. I think the humor in this episode works really well. It's like the classic kind of high stakes, so we need to have like a couple of really funny jokes here and there.
Yeah, or else it gets a little too serious. But I agree. I think the humor was relatively on point.
Also, is this the first song we get? The "Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart"? I think this is the first Steven Universe song.
Oh God!
Because I don't think. Oh well, I guess that's not true. We had the Cookie Cat song and the Cookie Cat song.
Yeah, but that's not like. Well, I guess it is. I mean.
But this is like the first like I guess character song, because the Cookie Cat song is I guess an ad.
Yeah, the first.
The Cookie Cat.
The first of many character songs.
One of my favorites, honestly.
I love the music of Steven Universe, so I always get excited for the songs.
Yeah, just a really great scene. I just really am impressed by how this episode's constructed. Like, they tie in, like, so many things happen in these 10 minutes. We can't really even touch upon them all, but...
Yeah, but, like, just a quick sub, like, Steven's relationship with his dad's relationship with, Rose
Pearl,
Quartz.
Not yet.
Steven's relationship with Rose Quartz. Weapons,
weird foreshadowing for characters we don't even know about yet.
Yeah. First of many Beach City destructions. Actually,
yeah.
Beach City doesn't get beat up too bad throughout the series. Like, there's definitely
when it does, it gets really fucked up.
Yeah. But I feel like a lot of stuff, the beach gets fucked up a lot. Yeah, just just good stuff. Good stuff.
Before we move on to our other segment about our keeping track of things, I wanted to say that I just think this episode is like the platonic ideal of a Steven Universe episode, like especially early Steven, because it goes into like we have the science fiction, like the space stuff, we have characters, we have new like what's it called? We get like new beach city characters introduced. We start to see a little bit more of the personality of the town. We see a lot of like background characters too, which was cool. Which is one thing that I absolutely love in stories are when you have a setting that's like a small town sort of thing, and you have characters just kind of pop up in the background. It just makes the world feel so cohesive and real. I love it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm trying to think of anything else to touch on beforehand. I feel like we got most of the stuff in the episode, right?
Yeah, there's like one thing that I didn't feel like I had to be mentioned, but I wanted to. I love that Steven's reaction, or Steven and Greg reacting to him playing Greg's old CD is so good, because it's just like Greg is so embarrassed at first, and then he sees how much his son likes it, and then he gets like, it's just like it's such a subtle change in expression that I love. Like he's like a little happy, like he's happy that his son is enjoying the thing that he made. And, like, these little details are just, they go so far into characterizing these cartoon characters.
Oh, and it's just wholesome as shit, too.
It is incredibly wholesome.
Yeah, but that is great. I mean, because Steven is so innocent at this point, too.
He really is.
He's just a bright-eyed bundle of happiness before the world starts to slowly crush him.
Oh, and one last thing, we didn't mention it. The every pork chop line. So, my one complaint in this episode is they use that line one too many times.
Yeah.
I think they could have removed the one of them and it would have been fine, because at the end of the episode, it's like, what activates the laser light cannon is like, sort of Steven like, opening up his like sentimentality is kind of what I saw, like, because when he says the line is when it opens and shoots.
Yeah, and I have to assume that was not the password. But like it does kind of foreshadow a little bit, like Steven's emotions are what control everything.
Mm-hmm. And even like silly things, like that's another thing that I like too, is like Steven incorporates silliness into his powers, like with I think it was Rose's tears that healed people before, but Steven, it's like his spit, which I think is a really funny like twist on that. And that's just a consistent thing. It's like you just see Steven like licking his hand and touching things to heal.
Even in future, he does.
Yeah. So I like that already. We're seeing like Steven activating his powers with like sort of kitschiness or silliness.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it his, you know?
Oh, yeah. For sure. Totally.
So yeah, I'm gonna admit, I totally forgot to check for hugs this episode. Episode
2.
Oh my god! As soon as you said that, in the back of my head, I was like, "Oh god, I didn't do that." So
I'm gonna scrub through it real quick, because I don't know if you want to count when, what's her face? When Garnet grabs Amethyst and throws her in the air. I don't know if that would count as a hug.
No, you know why? Because it's not. The hands aren't reciprocated.
That's true.
Although, a one-way hug is still a hug. But that's not a hug. That's a throw.
All right, I can confirm. Steven, okay, I need to ask about your rules. Because there's a part where Steven and his dad do hug. They hug for sure, actually. I just checked. So when Steven meets his dad for the first time in the episode, they hug. So there we go.
Okay, so that's hug. That's hug.
At least one.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was shocked. I thought I could have sworn that every episode of Steven Universe, at least season 1, he cried. There's no Steven crying this episode. Greg does tear up a little bit, but there is not a single Steven cry, which when I saw him going into his dad's shed, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to see some Steven crying. He's going to see a thing and be like, Mama, and then cry.
My mom's dead. Oh my god. You know, like a kid does.
Yeah, as you do.
Yeah, no, I think we'll both be surprised. I think Steven cries less than I remember.
Damn. I really could have sworn, because I guess maybe it was like a lie that I told myself for many years, where I would always, when I would talk to people about the show, I'd say, oh yeah, Steven cries literally every episode, but It's not true.
I think people cry almost every episode, but I don't know about Steven specifically.
Yeah, although, maybe I'll keep it open to just a general cry count.
They do even make fun of it themselves with like that one TV show that
Oh yeah, the crying. I love that joke. I forgot about that.
It's so on point.
Whenever Steven does jokes like that, they're always so fun. Like the Canadian like soap opera, not soap opera, but it's like a Canadian teen drama show.
Yeah, the self-referential stuff.
It's really funny.
It is good. So I will. All right. Hold me to it, Jimmy. Beginning of the next episode, I will come with a total hug counter for episodes 1 and 2, just to add everything together. And if I don't, smack me.
All right, I'm gonna write a note. I'm gonna write a note for it now, so I don't forget. Yeah. I am trying to keep notes. Let me see if I didn't say anything. Remind Tom. No, I think we touched on everything.
Yeah.
I just love the like it's one of those things like I can't talk about it so empirically because I'm not like an super art man, but all of the backgrounds and colors in this episode just look so good.
Yeah, I have no art knowledge, but I definitely can confirm the pretty.
It's just so I don't know. It's It just makes me enjoy like literally every second of this. Especially there was a lot of like background details when he went into the shed. I was just like enamored. I was like, I want to see everything. I want to see this whole fucking city.
That's something I do appreciate. Every background detail in this. A fun thing that I noticed because somebody pointed it out to me, so I looked. They early on too. They referenced the $3 bill a couple times.
Whoa!
Yeah, so
I didn't even notice that.
In the pilot episode, Amethyst gives Steven a $3 bill, and this episode, the car wash is $3 a wash.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, they will reference the different currency here and there throughout the series.
That'll be another fun thing for us to like bring up as we encounter them. There's a lot of like subtle and not so subtle changes in the background of Steven Universe's history.
Yeah, like the world.
Like apparently slavery didn't happen. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Apparently slavery didn't happen in Steven Universe. I think Rebecca or like Ian Jones Cordy.
Word of God kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's also like it goes into a couple like background episodes. There's one episode about like the history of each city that maybe that's why, but yeah, there's a whole thing with like all the states' names are different. Like they call, I think Pennsylvania is called like the Keystone or State Keystone or something. I don't know. Like they're all
all the states are named differently, and then there's the tri-state, right?
Yeah, and then I could have sworn they actually they shit on New Jersey in one episode though.
Oh, they absolutely do. They do when when Lapis Lazuli's flying over it and it's just traffic.
Yes. Okay. If people who are listening out there might not know, but we do live in New Jersey.
Yeah, but we live in the good part of New Jersey. Like
I thought you were gonna say the ghetto.
No, we live in South Jersey, which is best Jersey.
It is best.
And when people make fun of Jersey, they are making fun of North Jersey. We will secede eventually.
When we get around to it.
Yeah. You know, when we find the time.
I just have to say, I typed in Steven University, New Jersey by accident, and it gave me the School of Business for Stevens Institute of Technology.
Huh. Well, there you go. Glad he got a college named after him.
Yeah, I didn't think he was going to make it to college.
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually, I think it's called Jersey. I think it's literally just called Jersey in the show. Yes. But I mean, that's like the most obvious one. Yeah,
that'll be fun. I that's another thing I want to do. I want to point out all the world differences between our world and Steven Universe. Because I mean,
yeah,
you get a lot throughout the series. Sorry.
Like so the big one that I always remember is Siberia. It just doesn't exist. Like most of Russia is completely gone.
Yeah,
it looks like it was destroyed.
Terraforming by the gems, and that's another thing too. Like, I always wondered how aware, you know, up until really Steven Universe Future, are people of gems.
Mm-hmm.
Because, clearly they are. And, like, they even touch on, the founding of Beach City, like you said, and people meeting gems throughout history, at least these gems. But, like, what's the level of recognition,
Yeah. Was it us that we talked about it? I know I had a conversation recently. I can't remember if it was here. But how, like, there's just the kindergarten is, like, super close to Beach City. Like, they just, like, take a train to the kindergarten, basically.
we did talk about that.
Okay, yeah, we don't need to rehash it then. But so that'll be another thing to kind of, like, pick out. Because I think the only, like, political figure that we ever really see is Mayor Dewey. Like, actually, the highest thing we ever see. And that's always just played off as, like, a joke for, like, local politics. But
yeah, but we don't see any type of president or things of that sort.
Yeah.
Which, world implications aplenty. But we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, we should.
Because we did promise that it wouldn't be 50 minutes.
As long as we're under 40, I guess that's a goal to shoot for.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah. Thank you, people who are listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, this is very fun to do and talk about and, have something to do during the day.
Yeah, I'm definitely enjoying our conversations. It makes me not want to end the podcast so soon because
I know,
it's fun.
I feel the same way. But there will be plenty.
Yeah, there will be plenty. We'll be doing this till we're gray in the ears.
God, I ain't gonna watch Steven Universe until gray in the ears.
Also, yeah, keep brainstorming out there. Keep brainstorming, Tom. We're gonna come up with the name of this podcast eventually.
It's going to be such a good name.
I was thinking maybe like Steven Rewatchverse, but that kind of sucks.
Steven
View Universe.
Oh, Steven Unisex.
Yep.
It's out there. The name's out there. Reading Universe.
Oh, wait, there's one last thing before we go. Okay, you probably didn't remember to do this, but last time I asked you to come up with your gem sona.
Oh, god damn it. Remind me again.
All right, yeah, brainstorm it a little bit more. We'll come up with our gem sonas. I'm still not sure about mine.
Sorry, everybody. I promise I'll do better next episode.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, I have ideas. I think I know what my gem sona is, and I'm ready to cosplay. It's gonna be incredible.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for us to, when it's like the last episode and we get invited to Comic-Con 2029
we have
to
our panel.
be like the presenters. Yeah, we'll cosplay as our gem sonas then.
Perfect.
And that's when we'll do the episode on the movie. I can't wait for us to do our episode on the Steven Universe movie. I know it's gonna literally be like in
Forever,
years, but I love that movie so much and I can't wait to watch it again.
There will be so much to talk about. Instead of like a 40-minute episode for a 10-minute episode, it'll be like a 3-hour discussion.
Yes. We will watch it together. I'll make sure that we watch it in the same room.
That
so
we
can see how much I cry.
Oh god. I know. There's moments throughout the series that I'm like I mean, unless your heart's a gem.
All right. On that, I think we should probably actually end it.
Yes, because we are dangerously close to the 40-minute mark.
Dangerously. And then once we reach that 40-minute mark, my computer will explode.
Yeah, that's it, guys. That's it. So, I'm Tom.
I've been Jim.
And this has been Swell, and I love you.
I love you too.
Bye.
All right, bye.